Hello everyone. The title of today's video is Police Brutality and the Extraterrestrial. Now at first thought it may seem to you like these two subjects don't have much to do with each other, but if you give me a moment or two, I will make a connection. I used to be a happy believer in the extraterrestrial, in flying saucers, in alien abduction, alien visitation, and all such related events. I first became interested in these things when I learned about the famous 1947 Roswell, New Mexico incident where a flying saucer supposedly crashed into the desert. This was fascinating to me. What could be more historically important to the human race than contact with an intelligent extraterrestrial life form? I became very interested in following these events. I read many books on the subject. I became kind of a ufologist for many years. More recently, however, with the advent of the ever-present cell phone camera, I'm sorry to say I'm no longer a believer. I have lost my faith. Where is the compelling, clear-cut, credible video evidence to support the existence of the extraterrestrial? I haven't seen it yet. And this is very puzzling to me because, haven't you noticed, that whenever, wherever something bizarre, strange, frightening, unusual happens, there's at least one cell phone camera on duty to record the whole event. It's absolutely uncanny. I'm reminded of an event that happened a couple years ago where an infant fell from a 4-story window and was accidentally caught by a passerby on the sidewalk below. The infant was unharmed. Now, what are the chances of capturing something like this on video? Well, apparently greater than you might think, because just across the street was another pedestrian with his cell phone camera poised and ready. He captured the whole thing beautifully. Believe it or not. This is the kind of clear, credible video evidence I'm waiting for to support the existence of the extraterrestrial. I haven't seen it yet, and I don't expect to see it very soon. Of course, you can go to YouTube videos and see many videos purporting to be interviews with extraterrestrials, actual interviews. However, shaky camera work, often out of focus, poor lighting, bad camera angles. All these things mark the videos as complete frauds, and I'm sure they are. Or you can see other videos showing night lights racing across the sky at thousands of miles per hour and making abrupt right-angle turns at thousands of miles per hour. Something no earthly aircraft could possibly do. So they must be flying saucers, right? Well, think about this for a minute. If you were the pilot of an alien spacecraft, what possible motivation would you have for making right-angle turns at thousands of miles per hour? I can't think of any. Can you? In contrast to the lack of video evidence to support the existence of the extraterrestrial, we have an overabundance of video evidence supporting another kind of activity, which unfortunately shows up on the 6 o'clock news way too often. See if this picture sounds familiar to you. A helpless suspect lying face down on the ground, perhaps bleeding from a head wound, with 2 burly officers piled on top of him, trying to wrestle him into submission. Sound familiar? And to make matters worse, pretty soon they are joined by 3 or 4 other police officers who kick and punch the suspect whenever they have a clear shot, without hitting their own people, of course. What you are witnessing here is a felony in progress, and the felon is not the suspect lying on the ground with a bleeding head wound. To any objective observer, what the police officers are doing is getting even with any inconvenience the suspect may have caused them. They are meting out punishment, perhaps for a dangerous, lengthy car chase, a foot chase, or perhaps for a physical tussle. And the interesting thing is, in this country, a man is innocent until proven guilty. Well, this is not the way many suspects are treated daily in this country. And what if the suspect turns out to be a black man? Well, then watch out, folks. The police have really stirred up a hornet's nest. This creates immediate racial unrest in the city where it happens, which can soon spread to other cities throughout the country, which can lead to race riots, to burning, looting, destruction of public property and private property, costing millions of dollars. And all this was avoidable and could have been avoided if a few officers had used some self-control and done their duty properly the way they're supposed to. And then, of course, there is the inevitable lawsuit against the city. And whether the city wins or loses, it has to waste time, energy, and money in defending itself. And if it does lose, well, just say goodbye to millions of taxpayer dollars flying out the window. This is very sad. I wonder when city governments are going to get wise to themselves and get some control over their police departments. Here's a very interesting event that happened recently in the foothills just north of the San Fernando Valley. A suspect was escaping on horseback. I don't know how he got the horse, perhaps he stole it. But at one point he decided to give up. He dismounted the horse, lay down on the ground with arms and legs spread. In a minute or two he was overtaken by a group of sheriff's deputies who handcuffed him and began beating him, kicking him, and striking him mercilessly for several minutes. Now, the amazing thing about this video is not the police brutality. Unfortunately, we've all become used to that by now. The amazing thing is that right overhead, circling at low altitude, was a news helicopter recording the whole thing on video. And of course, the deputies were completely unaware of this. The video showed up on the 6 o'clock news. It was so sharp, clear, and detailed that each officer could be identified. We know who they were. We know exactly what they did. The amazing thing about this case is the punishment for the deputies. They are put on administrative leave for a certain period of time. Yes, a paid vacation for their actions. And when public outcry dies down, they're back on the force, doing what they have always done. Very unfortunate. And here is another very interesting event that ended up on the 6 o'clock news. Police officers were called to the home of a mentally disturbed young man. They knew the young man was mentally disturbed because they had been called to this address several times before by the young man's mother. When the police arrived at the front door, they were met by the young man holding a screwdriver. Yes, a common screwdriver. Not a machete, not a Glock, not a hand grenade, but a common screwdriver. The police, in their infinite wisdom, decided the best way to deal with a mentally disturbed young man was the macho approach, to yell, scream, and shout orders at the top of their lungs over and over, to drop the weapon, lay on the ground, drop the weapon, over and over. Now apparently, the young man became confused or frightened with this approach, and he did not drop the weapon. So he was summarily shot to death. Apparently, these very brave officers, and I underline very brave, were in fear for their very lives, and so they had to act quickly and decisively. Apparently, it's much more expeditious just to shoot first and ask questions later than it is to calmly and quietly talk somebody down. Now, another very interesting thing is the interview of a police captain the next day on television. The police captain claimed that these officers acted absolutely correctly according to their training. And the key word here is according to their training. Well, I suggest there's something drastically wrong with the training. It has to be reviewed and rewritten. For instance, why is it that a healthy young police officer, say with a minimum of martial arts training, couldn't have disarmed the young man harmlessly, nobody being hurt, nobody being killed? I dare say at my age, I could have disarmed the young man harmlessly, nobody being hurt, nobody being killed. Personally, I have no grudge against the police department. In my lifetime, I've had very little interaction with police. I leave them alone, and they leave me alone. But I wonder if I could say the same thing if I were a black man. I doubt it. Police captains will tell us, that their departments are 99% good, honest cops trying to do a decent job, trying to obey the rules, and only 1% bad cop. Now I wonder if this can be true. How is it that the 99% good, honest police officers tolerate misbehavior by the 1% bad cop? You'd think the good cops would be reporting the bad cops so they could be investigated and discharged if appropriate. However, cops do not tell on each other. There's a kind of police culture that says us against them, not necessarily to protect and serve, but us against them. Some police departments have started making their officers wear small video cameras attached to their uniforms so that later on their actions can be examined to see if they were appropriate or not. This strikes me as a very sad thing. It's sad that the people we hire to protect and serve us have to in turn be police themselves. But obviously this is the solution to police misbehavior and police brutality. Well, that's my entry on police brutality and the extraterrestrial. Thank you for watching, and I welcome your comments for and against. So long until next time.